Hello, this is Nitin Dahad with the Times. I'm here in San Francisco talking to Dom Rizzo, who's the CEO of ZeroRISC. Dom, hello.
Hey, how you doing, Nitin?
I'm good. Thanks for taking your time. I know you've got a busy schedule over here with, with all things going on. But let's just, when I did the story about you earlier this month, about your funding, you talked about open source silicon being inevitable, and I think the other thing you talked about is the fact that maybe the concept of open source silicon is not really that well understood by all players in the ecosystem. So I was just going to ask you maybe a little bit of background. Where does open source silicon come from, and what are the things you're trying to communicate here?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, so for me, like my open source silicon journey started like 25 years ago. Where this sort of frustration with some of the open source stuff that had been out there. There's this Open Cores website, but the quality standards were inconsistent, the implementations were inconsistent, and sort of over time seeing a opportunity there to kind of do some of the common functionality in the open, but realizing that methodology really mattered, design verification really mattered, having like style guides, like silly little things like that really mattered, right? And now we've kind of gotten it to a place where we've got commercial open source silicon with like the Nuvoton chip, the OpenTitan chip from Nuvoton, but also seeing people like Revos adopting it into their designs and sort of saying, well, you can sort of see where this trend is going. We've now got this like high quality kind of library of work. It's going to get more and more adopted as people sort of realize that you don't have to do everything in this proprietary, like in-house way, and there is a lot of valuable technical collateral out there that can be leveraged.
Now, I mean, you talked about some of the influences, and maybe that's great in terms of telling the story in context of what you're doing, but just go back a bit in terms of what does open source silicon actually mean?
Well. Bunny Huang, Andrew Huang, was a huge influence on kind of the need for transparency at the bottom. You know, it's really important that if you're going to trust a system, you need to be able to understand a system, which means you need to be able to inspect a system. And so, open source is really the way in which you do that. What does open source silicon mean? You know, I think often the understanding is that it means, well, it's free RTL, it's free IP, but it's open source isn't free. There's always like a cost to integrate it and leverage it and even just understand it and get it to the point where you do know how to integrate it. But also it's the documentation and the design verification and the conversation really about like how you use this ecosystem of IP. So I think it's going to take time and effort, which obviously I'm here for and I'm up for and I'm excited about, to kind of communicate that and educate about the value of it, but also educate about like the ways in which you interact with a healthy open source ecosystem, which is I think going to be new to a lot of companies.
But is there a misconception that open source silicon means free and less secure? And I think that's another thing I think that people maybe don't understand. You've addressed the free bit just now, but the other bit.
Yeah, I think there are a couple common misconceptions. There's the free, there's the less secure, or there's the like lower quality. Yeah. And I think the reality is those are not inherent properties of being open or closed. Those are properties of, you know, if you care about security, well, you're going to make a more secure system. If you care about quality and you have sort of well articulated, like clear published standards of what quality means, and you communicate what quality means, well, then you're going to have a higher quality design. So those are almost orthogonal from whether something is open or closed, right? And I think the thing that's nice about open is you don't have to rely on the just like kind of trust me sort of statement. You can say, well, yes, it's great if you trust us, but also you can look, you can verify it for yourself if you choose to, right? And just having that level of sort of willingness to kind of be transparent, I think, goes a long way towards establishing trust and enables, you know, even if something is lower, like has like say lowered like DV coverage for what you might want, having that sort of out there and be able to be contributed to enables other people to over time kind of make it better, right? Which is really kind of one of the key things is access, right? And the ability to improve things should you choose to.
So when people talk about the silicon black boxes and maybe, or even, I mean, I don't like to use the word, but in the age of AI now, you know, transparency is key, and I think that's where open source allows you that transparency. Is that
That's
right?
right. It's a combination of transparency and access, right?
Yeah.
Like instead of having to go through like layers of FAEs and report a bug, if you find a bug, you can file an issue, you can push a commit, you can actually fix it yourself.
Yeah.
And then not only do you benefit because you're not maintaining your own internal thing, but everyone else benefits as well, right?
Yeah.
So there's this notion of a really positive feedback loop or like an open source flywheel that over time, whereas people might start with the like, well, it's lower quality and why would I want to do that, to like, oh, well, actually, so I benefit, but other people benefit, and then there's this kind of positive ecosystem that you get out of it.
People have pushed this quite a lot over the years, open source silicon. Why do you think it's different now?
Well, so I look at the stuff, I feel like RISC-V in a way almost gave people permission. So what Kirsta and Yansup and all these folks did by getting RISC-V out there and in the world and showing that you could have an open source ISA is they sort of said, well, look, here's a standard interface, right? And it's over 15 years kind of proven its utility, and we're now seeing like second and third wave RISC-V, either IP companies or high-end processors like based on RISC-V specs and standards. And I feel like that kind of knocked out the kind of first brick in the proprietary wall in silicon, and now that we've seen that happen and that be successful and those companies be funded and those become like successful businesses, now people are saying, well, maybe you could do the same thing for implementation, right?
Yeah.
And I just really feel like they gave permission in a way.
Yeah. No, you sort of strike me as a very passionate person on this whole mission. You left a cushy job at Google, well, it's probably not cushy, but you left like nice corporate jobs, corporate environment jobs. You're really doing this with a passion. What's your real sort of motivation? Why do you get up every day to do ZeroRISC?
Honestly, it's mostly from my team. I am very, very proud of the people we've assembled and who I work with, and I very much feel an obligation to them. Also, I've been at this for 10 years. It seems like something that's inevitable. I want to help it become inevitable. Yeah. And it just seems wild to me that we have like better security in our cell phones than we do in our like critical infrastructure, and like it all starts at the bottom, it starts at the root, it starts in manufacturing, and it feels like that thing that everything else rests on should be open, should be transparent, should be accessible, and should just be like ubiquitous, right? And I think that's where I feel like I can make the most impact. Yeah. So I'd say what gets me going long term is that sense of impact and like really feeling like I can do something to improve sort of the transparency and trustability and reliability of the systems we all rely on. And I think on a day-to-day basis, it's the team and my obligations to them and wanting to see them succeed.
Now, as a path towards that, I know you sort of made a comment when we last spoke that you're spending a lot of time in Taiwan this year. Tell me what you can about why.
Yes, about why. We are quite serious about supply chain security, especially for silicon, and it's hard to do that if you're not working closely with the Taiwanese ecosystem, which has some really interesting characteristics, unique strengths, things that you don't really see anywhere else, right? The density of the ecosystem around silicon, the sort of engagement in high precision manufacturing, and if you're going to be serious about really impacting that supply chain, you have to be installing stuff there in factories there, which is what we're doing. So spend a lot of time there to make sure things go smoothly. Obviously, wouldn't be going there if we weren't getting a lot of commercial interest as well, and we are really looking forward to hopefully soon establishing a permanent presence there as well.
Oh, sounds good. So that's in terms of the business. What about technology? What's coming up from you?
So on the technology front, we've got some very exciting things cooking, especially around sort of expanded post-quantum support. And then of course we as a company, so that's kind of on the open source side. And then we as a company are, as I just kind of alluded to, deploying our first kind of secure provisioning, secure identity boxes this year, which we are very, very excited about.
Now I remember when we spoke for your funding announcement, I think you just maybe for the purpose of our audience who might be watching this, your business model is not necessarily selling the chips. It's about identity as a service ultimately, isn't it?
Right, that's right. I would say it's explicitly about not selling a chip. We view ourselves as sort of a chip enabler, and so we're very happy to kind of work with people, give this sort of enabling like platform stuff away for free, but what we're really interested in is this sort of logical network of secure identities and leveraging those to enable better manageability of both the chips and then the devices that they go into, so that we have more reliable, more trustworthy, more transparent sort of.
So what you've been doing in Taiwan is enabling the endpoints for that.
That's right. Okay. That's right. The sort of first touch of where does the device identity come from? What are the database of those device identities, which then allows us to build assurances all the way out through the rest of the supply chain.
So you must be building like a platform to enable that deployment, I guess.
That's exactly right. I would say we've actually built a platform to enable that, and that's also part of why I'm out here is working with people to test out that platform before it goes live.
Okay, I mean, perfect week to do it with Design Automate DAC, and so we're holding our chiplet conference as well, but yeah, it's kind of all part of it, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we're very excited to, I will probably be there, and I'm definitely sending someone there, and we're very excited for the EE Times DAC chiplet pavilion.
And so tell me what's next for ZeroRISC as a sort of last thing before we head back and probably get some lunch.
That's right. What's next for ZeroRISC? So I think for us, we have got a very, very solid technical team built, so we are pretty much in execution mode through the end of the year. And then I think early next year we're going to look at expanding our presence in Boston area, but probably also in Taiwan and potentially even a little bit in the Bay.
Great. Well, and more funding, I guess.
Always more funding. I know what my job is, and my job is more funding.
Excellent. Well, Dominic Rizzo, Dom Rizzo, thank you very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Disney.
Thank you.
All right.